Good morning, I'm Craig Stone, and we're going to start off with the tolling side of this discussion. But with that introduction, I will mention that when the Secretary Hammond asked me to do this job, because I've done typically more civil type things in planning, my wife said, "Oh great, death, taxes, and tolls." So I know I come to you a little bit with this, with a perception about tolls. But what I want to do is give you a quick overview, and and then we'll tie that in with the 520 corridor and answer any questions you might have. So with that, it's interesting, the 520 program, as Julie will talk about, is really made up of a number of different activities and projects. One of them is actually a grant that we received from the United States Department of Transportation. We were one of 5 cities across the country who applied for this, and it's formed around the idea of getting better performance out of a corridor and investment, and it ties together 4 T's. One of them is tolling, another one is technology, another one is transit, and the fourth one is telecommuting. And how do you apply that in a corridor to get the best performance out of the pavement, out of the corridor that you do have? So I'm going to just talk quickly about this program. So with that, yes, tolling on 520, yes, spring of 2011, just around the corner. Yes, on the existing facility, and while there'll be tolling on the existing facility, then the construction of the new program and the project and the pontoons and the east side are all going forward. And the analogy we like to use, and it really works well for this group, the more you can put down on your mortgage and your payment, the lower your monthly payments are going to be. It's the same thing in trying to finance a bridge with tolls. The more you can get and generate early in that program, the lower your toll rates are going to be. And in fact, about $250 million is going to come from the early tolling that will be invested right into the construction. So it's an interesting way of looking at that. But we're also trying to look at better traffic performance. How do you improve the actual traffic? As you know right now, going across the lake, especially 520, stop and go traffic, morning, evening, it's one of the worst we have in the region, clearly. But how do you pay the tolls? Well, Tacoma Narrows Bridge, you go down there, you can have a good to go sticker, you put it on your windshield, you just drive through, you charge $2.75, it comes up and shows up on your bill on a monthly basis, and it's just a direct deduct. Or you can stop at the toll booths. On 520, no toll booths. It would cost us another about $250 million to go out in Medina, build those toll booths, and you'd have to pay for them through interest and everything else. And they're also not very efficient in collecting tolls from an individual. It actually costs us quite a bit per transaction. So the choice is going to be either you get a good-to-go tag, put it on your windshield. This is going to be people who are using the facility fairly frequently, say once a week or more type of thing. But if you only come in occasionally, and we like to talk about coming to the Apple Cup from Spokane or something of that nature, you can also come through and we'll just take a picture of your license plate, we'll do a quick look up at the Department of Licensing, and then after 7 days of the number of trips going across, we'll send you a bill. I like to say it's like a Verizon bill or cell phone bill. You'll just see on there, right there, boom, 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 how many trips you made, what that bill is going to be, and again, if you already have it, and then you just pay that bill like a utility bill. You have 30 days to pay it. If you don't pay it in the 30 days, just like a utility, we'll add $5 late fee onto that. And then we also have some mechanisms if you just basically say, I'm not going to ignore this. There is a process where $40 is actually added on like a parking ticket. And if you ignore all of that, eventually there will be a hold on your license, on your re-registration of your vehicle. So sooner or later, it kind of comes back around. There is an enforcement side, but we really want people to be a customer-based system. The toll point will be the Eastern High Rise. This is a picture of it, but on the bridge, that's actually going to be the toll point. There will be signs that will show exactly what the toll rate is going to be, and it will vary by time of day. So our Tacoma Narrows Bridge, it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's always the same rate. For 520, it's going to vary. It'll be more in the peaks, it'll be less in the middays and the evening hours. Also, with the standpoint, trucks will pay based off an axle basis. They actually have more wear and tear, take up more space in the facility, and they're paying a higher percentage as they go. So who sets the toll rates? Well, what the structure is, the legislature authorizes tolling in what facilities. We have 3 authorized toll facilities in the state. It's been a generation, really, since we've had tolling. We've built lots of bridges in the earlier years. But Tacoma Narrows Bridge came on in 2007, the 167 hot lanes came out in 2008, and then as I mentioned here in the spring of 11, we'll have 520 going forward. But it's actually the Transportation Commission. It's a 7-member commission. It's appointed by the governor, and they serve their terms. They also set the ferry fares. They look at long-range planning, other activities, but they also are the independent body that looks then at the revenue, looks at the needs, and sets the toll rates. And so they're going to be having some public meetings December 6th and 7th on the Seattle Bellevue side. January 5th, there'll be a public hearing as they take input and consider then what the toll rates ought to be. Two scenarios they're looking at right now. Let's talk quickly about them. I mentioned during the peaks, the AM and PM peaks, that would be the highest toll rates. That's when the highest demand is. Probably one scenario would be $3.50 per direction. The other scenario is $3.80 per direction. So that's the high end of that, and then they go down from there. Also with this transit and agency van pools, agency sanctioned van pools, basically a van pool that has a rideshare plate and is signed up, can also go across the bridge, but they will not pay a toll for that. But that will be pretty much all the exemptions that will be. Everybody else, or even as a carpool, trucks, delivery, anything of that nature will pay to go across 520. Motorcycles will also pay as a two-axle vehicle, yes. This happens to be a depiction of one of the scenarios that the Commission is considering. You can see the sign up there in the top right. This would be a sign that would be on that eastern high-rise. As you drive through that, you'll see if you're in a good-to-go program, meaning you already put your deposit in, you have signed up with us, you'd be charged at that point $3.50 for that trip going across. But if you're coming in and you don't have that account set up with this, maybe an occasional user, there's actually a lot of occasional users, 1-2 times a year, maybe once a month, something, and you just have to decide, is it worth it to me to set an account up, or do I just want to do the pay-by-mail? The pay-by-mail would then be $1.50 more, so it'd be $5 to go across that bridge in that particular direction, and that would then come back to your mailbox when you get home. That will also work for if you're all the other states. So if you're coming in from Montana, we will also do a lookup. We basically have a clearinghouse, and we'll be able to work with the other states for that program. But you can see here on this chart, the dark blue is the good-to-go rate. So from 11 p.m. until 5 a.m., actually we will not have tolls during the construction period. This is because Julie needs to be able to move traffic around with the contractors and be able to have that ability to just be able to work in the corridor. And so we felt, okay, there'll be disruption, there'll be elements, and keeping everything working probably wasn't worthwhile. So during that time frame, no tolls. But from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., it would be $1.60 to go across the bridge. And then from 6 to 7 a.m., it would bump up to about $2.80. 2 hours in the morning, if you do $3.50, it would go back down to $2.80. Midday, across the midday area, about $2.25. And you can then see kind of how it builds back up and goes back down again. So what this does is obviously it's a supply and demand function that happens. The more demand there is, the higher the rate's going to be, so to help balance that. But the background interesting thing here is we're actually expecting about 20-mile-an-hour improvement in traffic flow across the bridge. So you're actually getting better improvement across the bridge that helps balance then with this you might say, supply and demand and how we're pricing it. This happens to be looking at a survey we did it's going back into how we actually establish toll rates and get information. But this was a survey of all the users on 520 and where they come and go to. This happens to be just an origin-destination set where the origins are on the Seattle side, and the destination happen to be on the east side, and you have the flip for the other direction too. But it's interesting, when you get south of I-90, not a lot of people will go across 520. And you get up in the shoreline area and up in Snohomish County, not a lot of people will go across 520. It's a very distinct band that's traveling across that. And so when you start looking at those drivers, those trips, and say, okay, if you put a toll on there, then what were their behaviors? What will they change? How do they value their time? And about 75% of the trips just won't change. People will just go ahead and they'll do that. And they'll take the trip across the bridge. But there's going to be about the other 25%, and they'll do some changes. Some people will say, well, I'm going to try transit. I'm going to take that. So we actually have a 40% increase number of seats are going to go across the bridge with our partner Sound Transit and King County Metro. Some people will try the van pool program. Some people will try other routes. And clearly I-90 is part of that conversation. And as we look at that, I've got a slide on that. Some people will try 522. Some people will try different times of day because they'll say, okay, well, I don't really need to get there at this moment. I can go a little bit later, and that'll be a cheaper toll, so I'll spread that. And then about 5% of the trips will just stay on their side of the lake. And it's going to be an interesting balance because about 5% of trips might stay on the east side of the lake, but that means also about 5% of trips will stay on the west side of the lake. And maybe it was a shopping trip, maybe it was something that was something they could have some discretion over. And that's going to be interesting to watch how that balances out. This is just a quick look at speeds as we're looking at these different scenarios with the Transportation Commission. We have lots of information and modeling, but just in summary, 520 itself will be about 20 miles an hour faster with the program. The big effect question is going to be on Interstate 90, about 5 to 10 miles an hour lower. We're looking at about 7 to 9% more traffic will want to come over to I-90. And so the question is going to be, how will the cross lake bridges balance? You look around 405 in the south end through Renton, not a lot difference through that, especially 405 up to I-5 in Linwood and Renton, not much changes. The communities along 522 are very concerned about this. We're meeting Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, Bothell with them. But we're projecting right now about 5 mile an hour or so with that. Again, these are best forecasts. The key is going to be monitoring, and we have a very robust monitoring program. We're going to be monitoring the state highways, we're going to be monitoring local arterials, we're going to be working with the cities and the county and our transit partners and watching what happens on day one, what happens on week one, what happens on month one, because we know traffic will settle down. People will try different things until they finally get themselves into a pattern again. So probably 6 to 18 months it will take for the system to rebalance as tolls are introduced to 520. So that's tolling, but with tolling, we're also bringing technology, and this is a picture of I-5 we opened up in August, and you may have seen this. It's been quite a bit on the media. You may have driven through I-5 and say, what's that about? Part of this is just bringing European technology to our corridors, and this is really about safety. And what you find is that about 25% of our delay on our system doesn't come from just too much traffic. It comes from accidents and events that happen. Actually, over half of our delay comes from other events like weather, construction, just managing the system. So this is a tool that really helps us managing the system, and it's really about safety. And in the European technology area, they're seeing about 30% reduction in injury, collision accidents, about 15% of property damage. So if you don't have that injury accident, you don't have blockage of the lane, you don't have the other lanes slowing down, and you get better throughput. And also, you don't have the pain and agony of having accidents, things of that nature too. So in November, 520 will start with this program, and next spring, I-90 will also have the overhead applications. And so far, the numbers look really good to us, and we're very pleased with the performance and how drivers are behaving to it, and also how the State Patrol, the fire can respond quickly and just have a clear lane to get there, and traffic can move around incidents. It's been very effective for that. Transit, as I mentioned, part of the federal program is about a $40 million investment into the capital side. Sound Transit Metro are paying for the operations side of the transit component. About 130 new trips across 520 added to about the 600 trips that are already there. So there's a big transit option for people to use, and look at that as a way going across the lake. And part of this deployment has happened this fall, but most of it will happen in February of 11, right before the tolling begins. And then what we call kind of the idea of options and telecommuting, we call it transportation demand management, giving people choices to be able to telework, form van pools, think about alternate ways of getting there and carpooling, and we're getting education and information out to people so they know what their choices are as they start thinking about how they might cross Lake Washington. So just in summary, where we are right now, big public outreach. You may have heard some of the advertisements, because we have to get about 70% of our trips going across the bridge signed up into the Good to Go program. That's where it's really effective. And so if you're going to be crossing the bridge more than maybe once a week or so, you really ought to be in a Good to Go type program, because you can see $1.50 per trip you're saving. And so with that, we have information in your brochures. I also have some flyers I'll send around. And then we're also setting up an interest list. So basically what we're doing is you can go to goodtogo520.org or Google Good to Go, get on the interest list, we send you information out, and in late January we'll actually be starting to set up accounts, sell transponders, and get ready for a spring of 11 tolling to begin. And then, as I mentioned, the Transportation Commission this fall will be having public hearings and meetings regarding what the toll rates ought to actually be initially set.